Welcome. This is the first ever online sermon from the First Church in Chestnut Hill. I'm Reverend Mark, and usually I would be robed and standing in a pulpit, but here we are at my desk. We will keep things simple for this time together. Some readings, a sermon, and then a closing prayer. We will start with Psalm 95. O come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him with songs of praise. For the Lord is a great God, and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth. The heights of the mountains are his also. The sea is his, for he made it, and the dry land which his hands have formed. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord, our Maker. Our next reading is from the book of Exodus, chapter 17, verses 1 through 7. From the wilderness of Zin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go ahead of the people, and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will be there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" So ends the reading. We heard, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." What should Moses do? The people are in need. They're thirsty in the desert. They have reasons to be upset, of course, reasons to be concerned. The stoning part, that's a bit of overkill, but the rest is understandable, maybe even familiar. "Moses, you got us out here into the desert, out from Egypt. Now we're wandering around the wilderness. Would a little water be too much to ask?" No wonder Moses would later name the place Massah and Meribah, which mean testing and quarreling in ancient Hebrew. How should we react when our leaders are not leading? When we are all going around in circles, when we are no closer to our destination? And we have not been wandering around in the desert for 40 or so years. And so Moses turns to God. We might imagine him wringing his hands, pulling out his hair. "Do you see what I have to deal with here? What am I supposed to do? Where should we be going? How am I supposed to take care of these people who are pretty much ready to kill me?" God gets practical. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink. Strike the rock, and water will flow. Strike the rock, and people may drink. It's a story about a miracle, but it's also one giving us advice. Put your faith in God, dear leaders, but also be prepared to act. Be prepared to lead. The people needed water. They would need food too. They would need leaders who would act and who would then lead them toward their right goals. Moses and the elders led the people to water, to take care of this most basic of needs. And there'll be other examples in the book of Exodus about the people being fed in the desert, eating manna from heaven. Another miraculous outcome, but again one that is tied to the needs of the people and to the expectation that the leaders would figure out how to sustain the people. There aren't many benefits to being a leader, let's be honest. But along with the perks of the office come the need to lead, the need to care for the people. That is at least the idea behind being a leader. That is the job description. There are, of course, leaders who do so in name only, and there are many people who care for the needs of others without any claim to rank or to leadership. To lead implies that the group is going somewhere, to a destination, to some distant point on the horizon, toward some specific goal, or even a general direction that approximates progress. As the journey unfolds, a few troublemakers in the back of the class might chime in, but where are we going? Why did you take this road with all the traffic? And of course, we might hear, are we there yet? The need for water and food, those are basic. We also need clean air as well and a place to sleep. What else might we need to sustain ourselves in this life? Anything? In a time when social isolation is more than a problem, but the actual medical prescription for a nation, it's worth thinking about what else we need to sustain ourselves. Imagine for a moment that you are in a room, one single room, and in that room you have everything you need to live. You have clean air, warm in the winter and cool in the summer. You have water to drink, hot or cold, facilities for bathing or other biological requirements of life. You have a little door through which you can get all the food that you need. It's like a Star Trek episode. You also have a comfortable and safe place to rest. Do you need anything else inside those four walls? What else is required, advisable, or even preferable in such a small space? What would it be for you? Entertainment maybe, television or videos or video games, the latest movies, the most golden of oldies of music, arts, crafts, paper for writing. What would be enough? Maybe add some puzzles, crosswords, jigsaw, others. Personally, I hate puzzles. I know that's a character flaw for some, but I could do without any of those puzzles in that little room where you're trying to imagine. You can fill your room however you like. What about books? I have literally walls of books, piles of books, acres of books. I say, we can imagine this, but my house and my office actually look like that, as you can see, so no need for a thought exercise. I just need a few more boxes and a lot more bookshelves. Now, imagine all of that, and would that be enough? How many more diversions would be needed to while away the hours in that little self-contained room? But what about people? To start, I didn't add anyone else to that imaginary room. No companion, no friend, no loved one. Someone to share the hours with in that room, with the entertainments and with all the boredom. What do we get out of the presence of others? Not just the shared activities of the task, but simply being around another person. One of the hardest parts of social distancing, about having to be separated from others for a time, is that we are, in many ways, sustained by being together. Even an introvert like myself goes to work, heads to the gym, stops in at the coffee shop. Along the way, we get to touch base. We say, good morning. By the way, before I have the coffee, I actually just say, morning. No point in overpromising for the day, at least until one is properly caffeinated. In a time of forced isolation, like we are facing around the world now due to the coronavirus infection, we are prioritizing one need over another. We are working to keep ourselves and others safe from infection at the cost of other important social needs. For example, we generally need to go out and work to make money to keep ourselves financially afloat. That is difficult, if not impossible, for many who are forced to stay home. Maybe their jobs have disappeared, maybe their daycares have closed, maybe they were working in now shuttered restaurants, theaters, museums, universities, schools. It's a long list. If you're not getting paid now, this is a difficult time. If you're sick and cannot work, you might be without any more sick days, or you may never have had any sick days at all. And all of that is assuming that you have a place to go to, a place to live, or one that you're not worrying about paying the rent for, with the job not being around to pay you. If you're someone who can decide whether a person is going to get paid right now, my hope is that you will decide with your heart rather than with your balance sheet. Now is the time for all of us to offer our patience, our generosity, and our grace to one another. It will make this hard time a bit easier, and it will make the effort more likely to succeed, to help people afford to stay at home rather than try to work while perhaps sick. Even if work and money are not a problem right now, it might be terribly lonely all cooped up inside. When you're used to going to the coffee shop, even if it's only to say hi and check in. When you're used to chatting with the store clerks or the people in line. When you're used to going to church or to synagogue or to whatever house of worship to be with other people. To listen to music, to hear a few good words, to share in some fellowship. I miss some of that engagement already, and I'm pretty much a hermit. If you are the outgoing type, if you're extroverted, I imagine being stuck in the house might be a lot to bear for any extended period of time. I have to imagine that because, mind you, I like just fine being home alone most times. In this way, we have our differences, and those differences are important to consider. We all need air and food and water, but our social needs differ. We might even change those tendencies from time to time. Some days it's a blessing to be out and about, while other days it's just fine to be home and finally alone. We have our differences, but at this moment, we don't get to choose. Even if we want to go about our day, thinking this is all a bunch of hyped up nonsense, all fuss and bother, other people do not agree. They are home. They are self-isolating. The patterns of daily life have been suspended for a time. We are also currently in the season of Lent, a time when certain personal practices might be suspended, a time when some Christians are called upon to reflect and to do without, to give up things like meat on Fridays. Some people impose additional restrictions like no candy until Easter, no alcohol, no cookies, no cake, no whatever. In response to the coronavirus, we are strangely in a time when we are being asked to give up so much more, the social contacts and connections that we often take for granted. We are being forced to go without. Is it fair? Not at all. Is it necessary? It seems very much so. Is some of it overkill? Perhaps. But the consequences of taking too many protective steps are far outweighed by the consequences of not taking sufficient steps right now. People around the world in different countries are experiencing that distinction, much to the regret of those who are more vulnerable, whose health and well-being are in question. I am going without something now so that I give someone else a chance to keep on going. If we think about this time of imposed social isolation like a Lenten undertaking, like a Sabbath time away from the world, it changes the perspective. It becomes something we are giving up in our lives to achieve a greater goal, to meet some higher purpose, more so than it merely being a situation that's being inflicted upon us. It's suddenly a gift we have to offer to those who might not be able to bear another encounter with yet another illness, for our elderly neighbors, for our friends or family with strained immune systems. The sacrifices we make now might give them a chance to be around later. And we might even get a few stories to tell in years to come. Where were you when they canceled the basketball and hockey seasons, when they shut down Broadway? Remember when we stockpiled 100 rolls of toilet paper? Do you still have that half crate of medical face masks? We're all set for Halloween. And even during this time away, maybe this time alone, it will be important to stay in touch, to reach out to one another, call your friends and family. Yes, it might be their turn to call, but worry about all that turn-taking discussions in weeks to come. Call now. Reach out to other human beings, even if it is by phone or some other electronic method. I have noticed as I've gotten older that it becomes somehow harder to stay in touch, even with all the ways we have to do so. We could write, we could email, we could call, but it slips our mind. It maybe is too much of a bother. We might let old grudges and disputes keep us from dialing that phone, from writing that message. Yes, by the way, you used to have to dial a phone, kids, and it used to live on the wall. Being forced beyond our normal patterns of life, it's worth considering what made up those patterns and how those ingrained habits left out certain things. Normal does not always mean good, and it certainly does not always mean best. So during this break in the so-called normal cycle of your lives, imagine what might be added to that list of things that you do. Maybe you call your parents or grandparents, or your children or your grandchildren, your friends, your distant cousins, whomever. Do that more frequently. Maybe start doing it at all. Maybe when you're out in the supermarket, you say hello, and maybe you even ask how the person is doing and mean it. Maybe you will finally pick up that phone or write that message to that person who you should have reached out to long ago. You know your story. You know what you have to think about and who you've cared about. And it's for all of you to answer the questions about what might sustain you and what might make your life flourish and grow during this time and well beyond. I'm just here to guilt you into doing it, and you are welcome. We will end this time together in prayer. It seems odd to me to be praying out into the internet, but here goes. Let us pray. God of life and love, we are faced with challenges this day. Our lives are stressed, our days seemingly on hold. And our loves may be far away from us, separated by distance or time, or maybe now of blessed memory. With these challenges, with these changes, with these losses, we are struggling. We are alone, and we wish to be with others. We are isolated and wish to be out in the world. We are worried and we are anxious about that world and about one another. And so we pray to you, dear God. We ask for strength to meet the challenges. We ask for the patience to endure the struggles. We ask for the resilience and the resolve to get through this difficult time. And we ask again and again for you to inspire within us love. Love for one another, love for all, for family, for friends, for neighbors and strangers, for the lost and for the last and for the least. Gracious God, may our hearts be open to the needs of others. May our minds be fixed upon the horizon beyond this troubled time. And may our souls be ever in your care and lifted up in love to you and to all creation. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen. My friends, our service is ended, but may our service to one another never end. Be well and go in peace.